Well, good afternoon, folks. I'm Jake Coburn, the CEO of the Community Development Partnership. And while folks are gathering, I just want to welcome you to our bi-monthly community conversation, where we select a topic each time we get together to kind of give you an update of different things that are going on at the Community Development Partnership. And tonight, I'm pleased to welcome Julie Kramer from Preservation of Affordable Housing and Gail Sullivan from Studio G Architects, who are the Community Development Partnership's partners in a proposal to build 46 units of affordable housing in the town of Wellfleet on Lawrence Road. So I think many of you are very familiar with the affordable housing crisis that is confronting the Outer and Lower Cape, and also with some of the efforts that the Community Development Partnership has undertaken to build the capacity of our towns to support the creation of more housing and affordable housing in our communities. And I'm pleased that one of the results of this effort has been a lot of work with the town of Wellfleet, who a couple of years ago voted to take a town-owned parcel on Lawrence Road across the street from the elementary school and just off of Route 6 and in close proximity to the village center of Wellfleet, and to designate that parcel for affordable housing. And over a 2-year community engagement and planning process, the town put together a request for proposals that was released back in July. And we came together with POA and Studio G to be one of 3 developers that responded to this RFP. And so tonight I wanted to share with you kind of what we have proposed. The town of Wellfleet and a task force called the Lawrence Road Task Force is currently vetting those proposals and starting to make decisions. And it's our hope that we'll be selected in the coming weeks to move forward with this development. Once selected, it will be then our job to engage the community and participate in what's known as a 40B zoning process, where the Zoning Board of Appeals will consider a comprehensive permit, and that will be an opportunity for residents, one of many opportunities already for residents to have input into the process and for us to make changes and tweaks to ensure that this proposal best meets the needs for the community. And so with that, we're going to do a presentation that's going to last about 20-25 minutes, and then we'll have some time for questions and comments once we are done. So I'm really pleased to present to you this proposal for 46 units of affordable housing on Lawrence Road in Wellfleet. So our team has put together a bold proposal to build high quality, affordable housing that's going to serve a range of incomes and household sizes. We also are committed to developing an environmentally sustainable property, nearly net zero in energy consumption, and to create a community with a resilient design and an elegant design that draws on local building traditions. This new neighborhood is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to build a significant number of affordable homes in Wellfleet. And we've proposed a community that provides housing for a diverse range of Wellfleet residents, from seniors and families living on very modest incomes to working families and empty nesters struggling to downsize into local and affordable housing. It also features a mix of unit sizes, a range of affordability, and a building design that will attract financial partners because it can be delivered on budget and will remain financially healthy over the long term. And our project will be built to the highest level of environmental sustainability, healthy, all-electric, energy-efficient homes. And we preserve the existing landscape while minimizing environmental impacts to the surrounding neighbors. So since our inception in 1992, the CDP has been active in Wellfleet, providing affordable housing and nurturing small businesses. We have a deep understanding of the town through our work making loans to shellfishing and other businesses, providing housing rehab services for low-income Wellfleet residents, and housing 12 families at Fred Bell Way, an affordable housing development in Wellfleet. Our partners at Preservation of Affordable Housing have been developing best-in-class affordable housing for 2 decades. They have extensive experience in building and managing communities on the Lower Cape. The CDP-POA partnership combines our strengths, the sophisticated development capability of POA with the local, deeply informed expertise of the CDP. And we believe that our team is well suited to collaborate with the town and deliver the project that is best for Wellfleet's year-round residents. So over the next 20 minutes, my colleague Julie Kramer of POA and Gail Sullivan, the Studio G architects, are going to discuss the experience and capacity of our team to get this project built, details on the affordability of the proposed units, the financial feasibility of the project, and our green design for the site, buildings and infrastructure, and our commitment to environmental sustainability. So with that, let me turn it over to Julie.
Mute off. Hi, good evening, everyone. I am Julie Kramer, and I work for Preservation of Affordable Housing, or POA, as we're known. And for those of you who may not know POA, we are a nonprofit developer, owner, and manager of affordable housing. POA's work on the Cape began in 2006. We now own and manage 670 apartment homes on Cape Cod and have an additional 30 currently under construction in Brewster. POA's development work on Cape Cod and our commitment to those who live here is unwavering. Over the past decade, we have secured over $57 million of low-income housing tax credits and over $16.5 million of state and local affordable housing resources to build and preserve affordable housing on Cape Cod. I have had the great fortune of working as a development project manager on all of POA's Cape Cod properties. As a result, I know more than I ever thought I would about septic systems and wastewater treatment plants. I'm sure many of you sort of feel the same way. POA and CDP respect the need for a proper wastewater solution and recognize it is a critical piece of any affordable housing on Cape Cod. POA has designed and built 2 wastewater treatment plants, one in Brewster at King's Landing and a highly sophisticated zero net nitrogen one at Canal Bluffs in Bourne. The balance of our properties on Cape Cod that are not on town sewer are IA septic systems, and that's an innovative alternative septic system. Those septic systems are aimed at reducing the nitrogen loading. This includes one at Melpit Farm, a property we own in Dennis. We are proud to say that Melpit Farm is also the first near net zero multifamily housing community on Cape Cod, and we're very proud of that. POA's experience with permitting multifamily housing through the comprehensive permit process, or the 40B, is extensive. 2 of our existing Cape Cod communities were permitted under 40B, and we've secured our 3rd 40B permit in March for development in Mashpee. CDP is our local partner for this important project and will ensure our development work once again meets the needs and goals of the community. As our development partner, CDP will lead the permitting work, they'll coordinate the lottery and lease-up process, and will be an important part of the ownership entity. The POA CDP team has the experience, capacity, and commitment to successfully and sustainably bring critically needed year-round housing to the town of Wellfleet. The next slides, I'll speak to our affordability goals and our financial feasibility. As Jay mentioned, this is a rare opportunity to build housing on the Lower Cape. Because of this, we wanted to use this opportunity to provide housing to a broad range of residents. We have proposed a range of affordability that we believe is consistent with the town's criteria included in their RFP of 30 to 100% area mean income. And it also addresses a range of needs from lower wage households working in seasonal service jobs and retail, to middle income households in construction, entertainment, office administrators, and many town employees such as teachers, police officers, and firefighters. Specifically, we have proposed 8 units that will be reserved for households with very modest incomes in the range of 30% to 50% AMI, or area mean income. These would be folks working in minimum wage jobs or living on Social Security. 27 of the units will be restricted to households earning up to 60% of area mean income. Those are individuals and households earning between $40,000 and $60,000 per year, working in seasonal service jobs, single income households, and retirees living on savings. Finally, we have proposed 11 units that will not be income restricted under a state or federal program. These rents will be affordable to households and seniors that may not qualify under the low-income housing tax credit program. We decided not to restrict these units with workforce housing subsidy because in our experience, workforce housing subsidy in smaller seasonally driven markets like the ones on the Cape sometimes end up being just too restrictive. They risk shutting out some residents who may not qualify at that moment, but nevertheless have a real need for affordable housing. Our intention for these unrestricted units is to have some flexibility to meet local middle income market. We think this market is likely in the range of 70 to 80% of AMI, but under no circumstance would we rent these units above 120% AMI level. If we are chosen and the town would like to establish an appropriate income or rent restriction for these units, we are all ears. We want to make sure, again, that we are meeting the needs of the community and hearing from the community. Regarding the financial feasibility, we know from experience that a realistic development budget, particularly in the current environment, is critical to delivering on the vision of our proposal. We've been able to consistently deliver projects on time and on budget for the Cape for a decade. And we are confident in our development budgets because it reflects real-time pricing from our projects, especially the one currently under construction in Brewster. It's a comparable, highly energy efficient project that is under construction and is hoping to be completed in the summer of next year. On this slide are examples of some of the funding sources we have successfully secured for our Cape projects. We have an extensive track record using each one of these financing sources, and we have proposed them for the Lawrence Road project. I'd like to emphasize that we feel the use of the low-income housing tax credit is critically important here. Without tax credits, this community will not be able to support some of the more affordable units that we feel are needed and would be more at risk of operating difficulties if the rental market isn't as strong as someone might underwrite it, or if there are some vacancy issues. I'd also like to point out that we recently secured a Massworks infrastructure grant at Brewster Woods, and we have been successful at securing these Massworks grants on 4 of other projects in Massachusetts. This Massworks grant is critical to the wastewater treatment plant funding that that the town and our project would be using. Finally, we believe we have a realistic long-term operating budget that provides for sustainable, resident-focused on-site management that is just as important as a realistic initial development budget. Our team's experience owning and managing similar properties locally, and our existing local staff enables us to take a high degree of confidence in our budget. And ultimately, our ability to operate a community that residents will love and the town will be proud of. I'm going to turn it over to our amazing architect, Gail Sullivan, who's going to walk through our design and sort of our thinking and our approach to this important project.
Thanks, Julie. Hi, everybody. I'm Gail Sullivan. I'm the managing principal of Studio G Architect, but maybe more importantly for this point, I'm a part-time Wellfleet resident. So I wanted to talk about the three principles that shape the design thinking that we've all done together. First, of course, affordable homes for year-round residents in a sustaining and livable community with deep environmental sustainability and resilience. So these three principles have driven every design decision. And sustainability starts with the site design. So we really focused our plan on building on the already disturbed land at the upper area. So you can see the housing at the upper part of the site wraps around the ball field. And then we put an elevator building at the lower part of the site, right where the old classroom building is. By doing this, we leave half the site untouched. So virgin woodlands, we thought that was really important. Let's go to the next, Jason. So here you see the way that the circulation will work on the site. So what we've proposed, and there are some questions about this and we're totally flexible, but we proposed a one-way road in from Long Pond and out to Lawrence with the idea that that would be the least disturbance to traffic at the school. We also design schools. It's always a big issue for schools. So that's the proposal. There's also an outlet for the lower building directly through their parking lot and out to Lawrence Road at the lower part of Lawrence Road. But it's wide enough for two ways. If that's the preference, we're totally open. Let's go to the next. And here you see the community building and a maintenance building. And the whole concept here is really an upper village, lower village concept. So the upper village is more for larger households, family oriented, 2 and 3 bedroom townhouses. Buildings are 3 or 4 units each. And the lower village, we've conceived more for smaller households, including seniors, for instance. So 1 and 2 bedroom flats, all of it is fully visitable, but of course it's easier in the elevator building to have 100% accessibility. Let's go to the next. Yeah, and there you can see, that's okay. You can just keep going through them, Jason. Yeah, the parking. Oh, and we left the water tower and its easement alone. We thought that was really critical. So one of the things that was important to us, and this is a factor of sustainability, is to really protect the existing wetland, Wellfleet landscape. So it's a very specific vegetation. I can't do this justice. Our landscape architect did a much better job in the interview presentation. But this was a very important element to us to protect what's there and then to add back native species so that it's really a restorative project. And let's go to the next. And here's the landscape plan that shows that, the dark green, of course, existing woodlands. And where we need to, what we've done is infilled the buffer zone. So everywhere we have a minimum of a 30-foot buffer zone around the housing, between the housing and Lawrence Road, between the housing and Long Pond Road, between the housing and the water tower easement, and a very substantial buffer, several acres, between Old Long Pond Road, down the hill, and the back of this site. We thought those were critical elements. Parking is dispersed, so it's perpendicular to the road, but it's in 3 groups of 3 or 4 parking spaces to make it really close to the townhouses. Let's go to the next. So here you see a view. This is at the Upper Village from Lawrence Road. And we took a departure from what our competitors did here. And we said, no not only do we want to build on the Cape Cod vernacular, but we want to recognize and build upon the lessons learned from the mid-century, mid-20th century, modern houses in Wellfleet. It's a legacy that Wellfleet should be very proud of. It's an incredible legacy. So let's go to the next. So we knew there were some questions about this, and we did a lot of research on this. So here's actually several houses from my neighborhood, and one not. I live in Payne Hollow. But in some of our research, we found this quote, which was kind of remarkable, that the WPA wrote a guide to Cape Cod. And this is because the Federal Housing Authority recognized that Cape Cod was the answer for affordable housing for families in the 1930s. So kind of interesting given the issues we face today. So let's go to the next. And so the mid-century modernists, what really is the point? It's not about copying the form, it's that they're using industrial materials to make simple houses that really fit their landscapes. They either hug the landscape tightly, the one-story buildings, or some of them, of course, are up on piers. They have a variety of roof lines from flat to gable to shed roofs, and they open to the landscape, right? Large areas of glass, in this case, single pane glass, wicked inefficient from an energy point of view, but a lot to learn from, and that was really our intention. Go to the next. And here, Wellfleet continues to innovate in its housing and one of the things I've been interested in a couple of years, we've been tracking the RFP, is what really is the variety of housing that's been built, say, in the last 20, 25 years in town. And here are a few examples. Roof lines vary, the way people treat windows varies a lot, and the form of buildings varies a lot. And we wanted to build on that. Let's go to the next. The other thing we wanted to look closely at is the only true neighborhood that's immediately adjacent to the site, which is Old Long Pond Road. And Old Long Pond Road by itself has a remarkable variety of housing types, and you see several of them here. And to the next. And we knew that there would be some concern about putting a 3-story building in Wellfleet. And so one of the things I was looking for is what's the norm, right? I know lots of 1- and 2-story buildings, but how common is something higher? These are all on Old Long Pond Road, and they're 3- and 4-story private homes. So there's certainly a precedent for doing something taller than 2 stories. Go ahead to the next. So having looked at all of that, we said, okay, what are we going to do? And the key things here: sustainable, resilient, affordable. And we wanted to make sure that we linked these buildings close to the landscape that they sit in. Go to the next. And to make them very neighborly. So the idea of having the townhouses face each other, which I realize it doesn't always happen in Wellfleet, but this facing each other, front door facing front door, is part of how we create a neighborly community, one that people build relationships in, where the kids can go out and play together on a quiet road like this. So this was very important to us in what we did. Also creating a real variety in the massing. So the buildings step forward and back, the units. Each creates a private entry for a specific unit. Everybody has their own doors, of course, but they also have their own walkway. There's a covered roof at every single townhouse entry. There's also a covered rear patio at every single townhouse, really encouraging people to move out to the landscape. Go to the next. So here you see a few of the things that we thought were really important from the Rfp Design Guidelines that we responded to. So, and I'm not going to go into all the details, but it talked about a creative mix of New England and modern design. We took that very seriously. So our palette here is roof lines that are largely defined by passive solar, by how we really maximize how to get PV array on these roofs the most PVs that we can so that we get to as close to net zero or maybe even energy positive at the townhouses as we can. So that really shaped roof lines. The roofs all face, the majority of the roofs and the largest sections all face either south or west. Those are our predominant locations for getting really good efficiency out of PVs. We wanted really large banded windows so that the spaces inside are full of daylight and people have lovely views out to a beautiful landscape. The color palette is very much a natural earth tones color palette. You know, accent doors perhaps, but everything else in natural wood tones. Individualization, as I mentioned, of yards, patios, porches, and landscapes separating people's yards so that there is a sense of ownership over one's space, outdoors as well as in. Let's go to the next. And then here at the lower village, this is the elevator building. As you can see, it's 3 stories in part of it is lower. And a lot the same principles apply here. But we were also thinking about potentially a differently abled population. So older people, people who can age in place, and what kinds of needs they would have. And we thought the best thing would be to have all their services under a single roof. So let's go to the next. And here we see again the precedents for some of the 3-story buildings in town. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. I did do a little height comparison just to see how the height of what we propose fits into those. And we are lower, for instance, than the old Duck Creek Inn, higher than the police station that's close by the site. Go ahead to the next. Just like at the Upper Village, connecting to the landscape was really important to us here. So one of the things we did is we set the front face of this building right behind the existing classroom building wall so that we could maintain a very dense vegetated buffer that exists right now on Long Pond Road. There's pine and oak trees, there's some enormous rhododendrons filling in between them. You practically can't see that building. What we'll do is infill whatever is missing, like where the cut is for the road cut, to come in at grade. But we wanted to maintain that strong buffer so that this is a very subtle presence on Long Pond Road. And the residents here have the joy of looking out to that kind of a dense landscape screen, but also to use outdoor space. So you can see here in the view, a large patio with a trellis over it that extends out from a community room so that people can move out into the landscape. And then there's a walking path from this patio, sort of meandering up the hill to the community building that I'll show you in a minute that's uphill. This building has its own shared laundry, its own lobby with mailbox, package area, and it also has a couple of offices for the property management staff that POA will have here, so that residents have the ability to connect readily with those staff, both program and property management. And then I want to mention a little about materiality here, because here we get to develop it a little more than in the upper village view that I showed you. So we really are looking at using a few different approaches to siding, of course, shingles, some vertical, either border batten or clapboard, and horizontal clapboard so that it breaks the mass of this building and creates some individuality of the townhouses up the hill. And you can see that here, where the 3rd floor is vertical siding, the 1st and 2nd floors are horizontal, and then this 2-story portion with the shed roof that you see in the foreground is actually all shingled. So this kind of play of the different types of siding that we see typically around town can really help enliven a building. Let's go to the next. So here's the community building I mentioned, and this is in the bend in the road. So it's available to both upper and lower villages, but it's a little closer to the townhouses. This is where those residents would get their mail and their packages. They have a laundry room up here, and then there's a large community room with a kitchenette. And in this case, it opens again to a large patio and community gardens at the back for people to enjoy. And from there, connect to the several walking paths that go through the woods and down the hill. Next. Here you see the floor plan. It's a little more detailed probably than you want. We can go on. And I mentioned sustainability a couple of times, and we take it really seriously in our firm. So the sustainability drove both a passive solar approach. We oriented each of these buildings within 15 degrees of due south in order to maximize the solar orientation of the facades and the windows, north and south windows primarily. But we also, as I said, oriented it to maximize the PVs. Let's go to the next. And this diagram, I'm not going to go into all the details, but this diagram shows the way that we approach a multi-layered set of strategies for how to achieve low energy, high performance building, getting as close to net zero energy in the building as we can. Jay mentioned the systems are all electric. There will be no gas on the site. And then, of course, the building envelope has to be very tight. And we are designing to passive house with the expectation of pursuing certification. That is the most energy efficient approach you can take today. And that means that there will be, in addition to operable windows, also mechanical ventilation in every unit. This is both townhouse and this building, and an energy recovery ventilation system. Solar electric panels on the roof, as I mentioned. So it's a multi-layered approach to maximize both the resilience of the project over long term and the energy efficiency. Next. And this is a diagram that we use to show kind of the three steps. First, you have to take care of the architecture. The building has to be very efficient, the envelope. Then you do all electric, very efficient systems. EUI is the energy use intensity, and we are trying to drive it to zero. So we did a little preliminary energy model, and this shows the lower village at 17.28, upper village a little just under 12 EUI. Passive house looks for 20 EUI. So we're already showing that we can exceed that. And with renewables, we can do better than that. Next.
Thank you, Gail. So I hope that this presentation has helped you kind of understand our proposal and our commitment to building high quality housing that is affordable, environmentally sustainable, resilient, and elegantly designed in a way that draws on local building traditions. And so while the town of Wellfleet will be choosing among 3 developers based on our responses to the RFP, it is important to know that our proposal is actually the beginning of a conversation with Wellfleet's officials and citizens on how to build a new neighborhood that addresses a broad range of community needs. One of the benefits of the 40B process and the public hearings that are required is the opportunity they provide for us to work together to fine-tune our vision and perfect our proposal. Through this process, we can adapt and modify our plans so that we create a project that truly meets the town's bold and inspiring vision for a neighborhood that addresses the affordable housing crisis and leads to a more equitable and diverse year-round community. And so with that, I'd be happy to entertain questions or hear your comments. Or if there's anything too that Julie or Gail would like to add, or Steve, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself? Steve Barr, why don't you unmute yourself?
Jay, what's the timeline here? And you know, there's 3 people bidding on this.
Yeah.
So when's Wellfleet going to make?
When can people move in?
Oh no.
So you know,
What's the
there is some
decision?
unpredictability to that process. So we're hoping that the town of Wellfleet, by the end of October, will make a decision on which developer and project to move forward. And then that would begin the process of going through permitting. That can typically take anywhere from a couple months to 6 months. You know, I think that the groundwork that's been laid, you know, the community engagement, that hopefully we're going to be closer to a 2-month process there. And then it typically takes another year for the proposal to be submitted to the state for the award of tax credits and other financing. And then probably it's a 12 to 18 month construction. So, you know, we're really looking at a 2 to 3 year process, unfortunately, that it's going to take to build this, even though we know how desperate not only Wellfleet, but all of the lower Cape towns are to see more affordable housing in place.
Yeah, Jay, that's 2024, 2025.
It is. And that is, you know, it is typically 3 to 5 years. And I've seen proposals that took Truro almost 10 years to build 16 units of affordable housing that were completed about 8 years ago. And that is a problem, that it takes so long.
Is it?
But that is, you know, that's the environment that we live in with, you know, with the regulatory process and the funding process.
Right. Is there any problem with the land that would require environmental or any of the other things? I mean, I can't see why this process, and I know it takes that long.
Yeah.
But you know, it used to take 20 years to come up with a drug, with a vaccine, and we did it in less than 20 weeks. There's an emergency here.
So maybe we need to get Dr. Fauci to shift his horizons over to affordable housing development.
That's right.
Expedite that. But certainly, you know, fortunately, the town has done some really good work with the site and feasibility, and, you know, identified any issues, any environmental issues, any endangered species issues. So all of those are pretty much greenlit, and you know, we'll be really surprised to find any unexpected hurdles there. But this, you know, and as you said, one of the things that we really focused on this project too is to only build on land that's already been disturbed. So we're not going into, you know, habitat and building on it. We're building on places where the land has already been cleared.
Oh, okay. Who owns that playground?
So the whole parcel is part of the town of Wellfleet owns it. Ball field is the town's ball field.
Okay.
And so the town will actually retain ownership of the land, and we would execute a 99-year ground lease with the town to build this development.
And the ball field would stay an active ball field?
Yeah. So the ball field will stay, and yeah, that was one of the requirements of the RFP.
Right. You got, you know, it looked like there's a big chunk of land out back.
Yeah.
Did the architects or anybody think of putting some sort of gardens out there?
Yeah,
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, we are envisioning gardens. I mean, again, this is a balancing act between leaving undisturbed as much as we can leave undisturbed, because we understood that that was one of the town's desires, but also, yes, we need to clear for the buildings because not everything's been cleared, although the area we're proposing to build on has been disturbed. Some of it is still wooded, and we will certainly have to take down some trees, but we're trying to minimize it. But what I'd love to do is to take down some trees toward the back of that community building so that you have a nice sunny area. And yes, beautiful community gardens is what we've envisioned there.
Right. A friend of mine has a house in Wellfleet, and a couple of friends of mine have gotten into the community garden down off of, I think it's County Road. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a pretty good sized community garden that's right in front of an elderly housing thing. And it is such an active community site.
Right.
It's, you know, growing kale and beans, but it becomes such a focus, and it's, you know, it's part of the sustainability.
Right, exactly. I totally agree. And I think, so I was part of a community garden. I live full-time in Jamaica Plain. That's where my business is. And we were part of a community garden here, and had a community garden with an adjacent, really a tot lot, you know, really play space for young kids. And our idea here for Lawrence Road is you combine the community garden, the big patio behind the community building, and a play yard, a natural play yard for children. So now everybody's got something that they want to do there, and you will really see a lot of social interaction. So that was really the intention of putting that community building up there where we did.
Yeah, I live in Sandwich, and they a lot of times they start talking about, oh, well, no, you can't take down trees. These trees are 30 years old. They weren't here 30 years ago. Give me a break.
So now Gail has to leave us in a little bit.
Yeah.
So any other questions for her or for Julie or for myself? Manny Smith, if you want to just unmute yourself.
Yeah, sure. We didn't hear the whole presentation. It slipped our minds, but Liz and I were here for most of the last presentation. And I just had a quick question about, I mean, this is real detail, but how much more expensive would it be to have washer and dryer in each unit instead of having a community laundry? I think that's a big feature for people. Maybe I'm wrong, but is it
Julie, do you want to talk about that? Because this is
Sure.
this is an issue that comes up, in, you know, in any development.
It does, and it's something that we have tossed around a lot on the Cape, especially. You know, what we have found is it's a, you know, it's part of our sustainable approach. When folks have their own washer and dryer, which, you know, most folks want, right? They want to have that, you know, that within the confines of their unit, but it tends to, you know, not just the upfront cost of plumbing it and making sure it's vented for the dryer, but it becomes a constant ongoing cost. So the utility costs, you know, are higher because you're doing smaller loads at, you know, more frequently. It also becomes a cost when you're moving those you know, washers and dryers out of your unit. Sometimes there's damage to the units because, you know, they're just heavy and bulky, and you don't always have the right movers to take those in and out. So we have found that in most cases where we've provided a very clean and connected a laundry room or laundry location, folks use it as a social, you know, as a social engagement. They bring their kids to, you know, play in the outside in the playground, and, you know, we make sure we have a lot of visibility so folks can keep an eye on their children while they're doing the you know, while they're doing their laundry. And especially for seniors, it actually becomes a great benefit to bringing them together. And, you know, I'm going to do my laundry on Tuesdays at 4 o'clock, and so am I. And you can read a book or have, you know, a cup of tea while your wash is going on. So it's not just the upfront cost. It's really a long-term cost and a commitment to sustainability.
Okay.
I'm so sorry, I have to go. Very lovely.
Thank you, Gail.
See you.
Really appreciate your taking the time to be with us.
Take care.
Other questions or comments? in the few minutes we have remaining. Lori Friedman.
Hi. Thank you for this presentation. So I have 3 questions that are completely unrelated. One, if you could talk about lighting and just the impact, you know, I mean, the night sky in that area is beautiful. So, you know, it's to suddenly have 46 units and having to light them will have an impact, especially from the upper village because it's so high up. 2, is there going to be an area for storm water runoff? Because, you know, when you're putting that much sort of street and concrete and buildings down, what will happen with stormwater? And then the third one is the trash enclosure and the smell emanating from that. And well, I guess the fourth one. And will the maintenance building have any kind of equipment running in it on any kind of a constant basis that it will contribute to sort of noise in the area?
Those are all really, really good questions. I hope I can remember them all, but let me start from the maintenance building. It would not have any equipment that would run, you know, constantly. Some of our maintenance sheds have that are connected to a wastewater treatment plant do have some fans or some you know, some mechanical devices, but this one presently is not anticipated to have that. The wastewater treatment plant is off-site, so it's not located quite on our site. I'm sorry, what
So
Stormwater.
lighting,
yeah, lighting.
Yeah.
stormwater runoff, and then the smell from the trash.
Right. So lighting is on all of our projects on the Cape. Lighting is very important to the community, and all of our properties have had what's called dark sky lighting. So the lighting is not meant to illuminate the sky, right? It's meant to be more pinpointed to, you know, for safety reasons or for, you know, towards your front door. So that's something that actually we have had it written into the 40B permit. So the 40B permit, as we go through the discussion of design, that becomes a condition of the 40B permit. So it's actually tested as part of the occupancy. So we've got to meet dark sky requirements. Everything will be energy efficient. You know, I think we had a very concerned abutter in our property in Melpit in Dennis. If you've ever driven by it, it's next to a horse farm, which is remarkable and it's beautiful, and we wanted to celebrate it. So the woman running that farm also had some concerns about the lighting and about, you know, so we worked with her and I think we came up with a great design. And I think if you ever drove by it at night, you'd understand you know, the lights are cones, so they go, you know, directly down, and they don't light the sky. Smells on trash. You know, we have, you know, currently we've designed two trash locations, one for the lower and one for the upper village, and we take it very seriously, not just smells, obviously, but, you know, making sure that the trash is picked up, those barrels are maintained. If you don't maintain the barrels, then residents feel like they can put their trash wherever, right? So you've got to have house rules. You've got to make sure that there's a directive onto what gets recycled, what gets thrown away, when the trash gets picked up. And we're very stringent about that. You know, it's very, very important to, you know, many things. It has a domino effect. If the trash goes bad, a lot of things go bad. So we focus on making sure that we, you know, keep it clean and keep it presentable. Did you have another one? I'm so
Okay,
sorry.
Julie,
well-
you want to just mention stormwater?
Oh, stormwater. So stormwater, again, it's critically important. Again, with our 40B permit, many of them require that we take care of all the stormwater from our property is taken care of on our property. So sometimes that involves putting in what's called Coltex, I think it's like a name of a system where it's collected in these underground sort of barrels that then get absorbed into the earth. So it gets collected very quickly in sort of a container, and then slowly it drains out. All of our stormwater has to be managed on our site.
So, but will there be like open some communities have open collection pools where, when it's not raining, it just looks like sort of almost an empty pool, swimming pool. But when there's a lot of rain, suddenly you have a lot of stagnant water in there.
We don't typically do that. We only do that when it's connected to a septic system. And we have, special vegetation that resides in those pools so that the water gets absorbed quickly and then again gets distributed underground. We don't like standing water because frankly, it's not, it's not a healthy environment to walk through. So we handle our stormwater very effectively.
Before I let Bill Madden ask his question, let me just add that kind of two things. One is that also keep in mind that there will be on-site management here at this property, and it's one of the beauties of building a property with 46 units is that the economics of it is that you can finance and pay to have maintenance people and a property manager there, 5 days a week during the day, and having 24/7 on-call services. And so things like, ensuring that the trash is being disposed of properly and the property is being maintained and people are parking where they're supposed to, all of that, you've got people on site kind of ensuring that all those things happen. The second thing to keep in mind too is that so this proposal is going to go to the zoning board of Wellfleet. And in addition to the zoning board holding public hearings and working with consultants to vet the proposal and negotiate changes and have conditions in it, the Conservation Commission, the Board of Health, and the Planning Board will also all have an opportunity to weigh in on the project. And so, ensuring that all of the stormwater is being managed on site and we're not damaging the environment. All of those things are going to be taken care of, that things are placed where they need to be placed. One of the details, too, is that, so we're having a paved road through the site and a paved parking lot at the building in the lower village, but the individual parking spaces within each unit are actually going to be proposed to be shell spaces, and so that that further reduces the amount of storm runoff that there might be. Other Bill, you had a question. Bill Madden.
Oh, thanks, Jay. Yeah, I was just wondering about residency restrictions at the property, just more in terms of, do they have to have already lived in Wellfleet or worked in Wellfleet or have kids going to Wellfleet schools? And I guess a follow-up question to that, just in terms of POA, is that similar to some of the other communities that you manage in other towns on the Cape?
So I would just say in terms of the residency requirements. So we have laws at both the federal and state level that are called fair housing laws. And what they do is that they support the principle that people should have mobility and people should have the ability to move from one place to another. And so all of the rent up has to be in compliance with fair housing. That said, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts does allow in the initial rent up that up to 70% of the units for the initial rent up can be set aside for residents or employees or families that have school children in the town. And we would certainly work with the town to make that a request to the state to allow for that in the initial rent up. But I think that one of the things that's important too is that, you know, a lot of times we talk about the population of the Cape is declining because people are leaving. And actually, if you really do a deep dive into the demographics, it's not so much that people are leaving, it's that we shut off the pipeline of young families who can move to the Cape and make a life for themselves here. Back in the 70s and 80s, the population growth that happened on Cape Cod happened from people who moved here and built a life here. And we still have that as a challenge, or that people who move away, go to college, live in an urban area for a few years, and then decide that they want to come back to a community. And so we want to definitely provide opportunities for a more diverse community and a more diverse population, and really do a balancing act of meeting the needs of people who currently live on the Outer Cape, but also providing some opportunity to welcome new families into our community, because we need that to inject entrepreneurship and vision and excitement and energy into our community. Manny Smith. You're still on mute. There you go.
We may have missed this because we joined late, but what percentage of electricity of the development can be met by the solar energy in the community and the solar panels? Is it known? It's
Yeah.
probably just a guess, but
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a guess, but in our properties where we have been fortunate enough to do solar panels, we strive for what we call near net zero. At Melpit Farm, where we have a near net zero design, we are really close to meeting the electrical needs of the property with the solar panels. That being said, at that property, we have what's called a net meter. So it collects all the electricity, even when it's not being used, and we sort of get a credit against it when there is a draw on electricity. So that one was designed with that in mind. Let's try to see how we can make this as zero net as we can. And it's not only the solar panels, it's how we build the walls, what windows we use, how we orient the property. So it's all part of what we were amazed about with Studio G, that they just their design never felt like it was a square peg in a round hole. It felt like it was oriented appropriately and really made for a beautiful design, a beautiful community.
thank you.
And just one more question before we wrap up, Carl Sussman.
I was just going to comment. I served on the Lawrence Road Task Force that put together the RFP, and I'm not on it anymore, so I'm not involved in this process. But I was extremely impressed with this proposal. You guys did a great job. It is, I think, the one that's most responsive to the RFP, but there's also just a lot of creative parts to it that I was very impressed with, and a great team. I think having POA involved, one of the premier affordable housing developers in the country, is a great contribution to the town.
Thanks, Carl. This has been a really fun project to work on, and I really hope that we get to continue, and hope that we have some opportunities to do some more projects in the future, because it really does combine, the work that the CDP has been around for 30 years. We really understand our communities and what the needs are, and how to be responsive to those, and then to be backed up, because we don't have the experience of design and financing. And so to have the incredible talent with Julie and her team at POA and Gail and her team at Studio G, it's really a great collaborative effort, and I think a real model for us going forward about how we develop affordable housing, and can do it at a scale that is going to meet the incredible need that we have in our communities, but also do it in a way that fits into our communities and that's most responsive. I hear a lot of concerns about building neighborhoods that are with this many units and at a 40 to 50 or even larger. And just a couple of thoughts about that. Like that I appreciate that we're not used to having buildings with elevators on the Cape. And that having 40 to 50, 60 families living in one place is a lot. But the alternative to scatter housing throughout the community, I think is not only financially very challenging and potentially not feasible, but I also think it's environmentally irresponsible. We should be bringing people together close to our village centers where they can walk to work and services. When we build with some density, we can preserve open space and not turn Cape Cod into suburban sprawl. And it's the only way that we can build housing that's energy efficient and is responsive to the very urgent threats of climate change and the threat that has to our coastal communities. And so, I hope that through this process and engaging the community about why we've made the decisions that we've made, is that this is really the path forward for meeting our housing needs, whether they be affordable or market rate on the Cape. That this is the responsible way for us to accommodate growth in our population and not turn Cape Cod into a parking lot where everybody's living on single family houses on 1 acre lots and gobbling up all of our remaining open space. And so I really hope by engaging the community that we can kind of come to a shared vision that this is the most responsible and environmentally responsible path forward for us. All right, with that, I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. I really appreciate, Julie, your giving us your time, and Gail as well. Feel free to reach out to me with more questions or comments. Also, I'm really interested too in sharing, particularly with Wellfleet residents, our vision and our design. If you've got a group of people that would be helpful for us to talk to and make this presentation, we'd welcome that opportunity, or even a group of neighbors. We want to maybe gather for a beer in a backyard. We can do that too. And I really appreciate all of your interest and the support of the work we do with the CDP. So have a great night. Thank you.
What's your contact information? You're muted.
Sorry, just go to our website, capecdp.org, or Google Community Development Partnership, and all of our emails and contact information are in the staff directory there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Have a good night.
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night.